If you've ever been on Reddit, you know what a throwaway is. If not, I got you. A throwaway is an account made for the sole purpose of posting something that doesn't link back to your main account. A common thing for a website as huge as Reddit, where you can find everything from cute animals to the darkest crevices of humanity. And porn. Can't forget porn. But what about someone who, for whatever reason, is obsessed with a single idea that they can't let go of? In order to get the response they want, they create throwaway after throwaway after throwaway, spiraling from posing a single question to stating an assumed fact. They only reply to comments that seem to agree, even slightly, with what they're trying to say. At least most of the time. Now, imagine doing this on and off again for over 5 years. But before we get to that, let me set the scene. There we go. Alright, kick back for a second. It's time for a story. In 1962, 16-year-old Edward Brian McCleary, along with 4 of his friends around the same age, swam out to the USS Massachusetts, a sunken boat near Pensacola, Florida. They had swimming fins, masks, and a life raft in order to get close, and have a way to get back to shore. They took turns paddling, but as they got closer, a storm rolled in. Things grew cold quickly, and the raft was being pushed out to sea because of the winds and the waves. The group tried several different ways to get the raft back to shore, from hopping out to kick from behind to signaling to a neighboring boat that they needed help. Neither method worked. Kicking wore them out too quickly, and the woman on the boat they signaled to only waved their way, but didn't stop. Soon enough, McCleary spotted a large buoy and suggested tying the raft to that. Unfortunately, there was a riptide at the base of the buoy, and it sucked the raft under the waves, stranding the boys in the water for a moment. The raft soon resurfaced, and 3 of them climbed back inside. By then, night had come, and the group was starting to get pulled past the USS Massachusetts and further out to sea. Some unknown amount of time later, fog rolled in, and visibility was limited to about 30 feet out. The boys waited for the fog to clear, but then something strange happened. The water under them became warm, and a horrible stink filled the air. A weird brown slime began to coat the water. Then, several yards away, they see something sticking out of the water before it dives right back down. And it was described as looking like a telephone pole with a bulb on top. The strange thing dives back under the waves, and they're left alone for a moment. While the group discusses what they think they just saw, there's a high-pitched whine from below, and everyone starts to panic. The water gets cold again. The storm finally breaks, and rain comes. Everyone is exhausted and confused. Half a minute later, one of the boys gets picked off and dragged under the water. Then another boy gets dragged under. One by one, the boys get picked off by this strange beast, rising up and out of the water and crashing back down. Soon enough, it's pitch black, and the creature breaks water one more time, before pulling the last of McCleary's friends under. After that, McCleary can't remember what happened. He washes up on a beach, and is soon found by passers-by the next morning. I'll post a link to a much better and much more detailed version below, in case you're curious. There's also a few newspaper articles that I'll link to as well. Back where I belong. But why am I telling you a story about a sea monster? What's this have to do with throwaways? A lot, honestly. This is a sketch of what McCleary thought he saw. I personally go with the theory that the fog and exhaustion combined had him and the other boys mistaking the head of a right whale with a sea monster. When you're scared, cold, confused, dehydrated, and there's a lot of weird shit going on to stress you out, I can see why this might look like a monster. Considering what other body parts people thought were sea monsters, it's not that much of a stretch. Most likely a whale.
What kind of whale eats people?
Not ate, but swallowed while breaching, possibly, and thrown back up. Although a sperm whale is capable of actually swallowing a human since its throat is wide enough. They don't actively hunt humans, nor do killer whales. But killer whales on a rare occasion will attack a human, but not eat them. Comment removed by moderator. Google different types of whales breaching. Some of them fit that description. Also, consider the source. A traumatized kid who can't even really understand what he saw. Simple case, open and shut. The confused and scared teenager saw something he couldn't understand, and his brain filled in the gaps to create a remarkable, if fabricated, story. This is where we get to the rabbit hole. I was browsing the No Sleep Out of Character subreddit and found a post about a creepypasta creator who took something too far. Considering what happened the last time a creepypasta was taken too far, and my link to horror and creepypasta in general, I had to take a look. And then I fell in. By the way, the reason some names are censored throughout this, but others aren't, this is all you get when you click on most of the names I just showed you. All suspended, all about this same thing. McCleary and his dragon. This poster uses throwaways to get across the single point that they're constantly trying to make. McCleary made up what he saw and killed all of his friends. If it just ended there, we wouldn't be talking about it. The poster has a tendency to look at this story from the single angle that there is no dragon and McCleary was unhinged, claiming the man was a serial killer, or claiming that the poster themselves drove McCleary to suicide using memes, all the way to claiming that the poster was McCleary's son and he got a deathbed confession. Over time, the poster goes from the pretty simple outlook of, do you think it was a dragon, all the way to, dragons aren't real and this guy was a murderer. As to what the poster thinks about the dragon McCleary saw, a sock puppet. No, really. Well, hold on, let me just... There we go. Okay. This is the drawing McCleary made. It's rough and rushed and possibly done on a napkin. And here we have the sock puppet. Well, the cartoon is based on a sock puppet from a children's puppet show. This fine fellow is Cecil the C6 Sea Serpent. He and his best friend Beanie were part of a Bob Clampett cartoon.
Bob Clampett cartoon!
Yes. Thank you. As I was saying, Beanie and Cecil only ran for one season with a very short revival in the late 80s. It has a loyal and friendly fan base to this day, and I clearly remember watching the show on Boomerang when I was a kid. You can watch it on YouTube if you're so inclined. It'd give you a break from Cocomelon if you've got kids, anyway. But Cecil had started out as a sock puppet. If you were familiar with the sea serpent and you saw something aquatic that you didn't understand, I can kinda see why Cecil could be used to fill in the gaps from what happened to McCleary. The problem is, I saw this sketch years ago while researching something to narrate. A very long time ago. Back then it was just a picture and a paragraph, so I passed on it. And when I saw it the first time, I didn't think of Cecil at all. Tell me, how does this look like this? Actually, there we go. But even with this to look at, it feels like a stretch. This was made by one of the throwaways, by the way. One post by one of the more recent throwaways talks about obvious eyelashes on the sketch, and do you see eyelashes? I don't. And looking at the comparison picture, the only thing that they really seem to have in common is they've got long necks and they have a similar head shape. Lots of sea monster and lake monster depictions look like the sketch. Are we supposed to think that all of them were inspired by Cecil, the seasick sea serpent? Hang on. It gets weirder. Are you the same person that's been posting this case on different accounts for, years now? I was just thinking about you the other day and how it had been a while since I'd seen you. I guess I'm glad to know you're still around. It has been driving me bonkers for I think a couple of years that, no one here ever remembers this person. Same specific fixations, make similar odd unsupported claims about the incident over and over. Pretty sure it's also the same person who keeps posting about something along the lines of making a character from their own writing real and then killing them at one point. There was another repeated post with similar themes too, but I don't recall the specifics. And I'm pretty sure this is also the nerd thighs fetish troll. Psst. Current time Dante here. We're not going into that last one. Okay? Okay. He always deletes after a few weeks and then comes back with a new account. The first post where someone posted about this idea was 5 years ago. For the sake of needing a name for the poster, instead of just calling them the poster over and over, I'm just gonna call them Dave from here on out.
Why is it that the most interesting animals, a worm that can shoot balls of lightning through the air to kill camels and people, a 500-foot-long sea dragon, and a 6-foot-tall moth-ape hybrid, so hard to find? Lots of sightings, but no video or pictures. Especially the 500-foot-long sea dragon that's been seen killing sperm whales by dragging them tail first into the depths, and love hanging around shipwrecks off the coast. Source: Edward McCleary. The Pikachu worm thing was mentioned on Animal Planet.
Pretty simple post. Barely mentions McCleary at all. But with every new account, the posts devolve. From genuine questions of what could have happened all the way to claiming he's McCleary's son or was the cause of McCleary's death. Other than a lot of the posts having a similar theme, along with the throwaway names seeming to follow similar themes, and this being the only thing that the throwaway accounts post about for the most part, there are a few tidbits that are telling me that something else is off about this guy, and it doesn't feel like a troll to me. I'll get into that later. If the opinions were different from one throwaway to the other, I would think that they were different people. But the opinion is always the same thing. McCleary made up everything and is a bad person. He's a liar, he's a stalker, he's obsessed, he killed his friends and blamed it on a sock puppet from a kid's TV show. McCleary killed his friends and nobody did anything. They believed his dragon story, but everyone knows dragons don't exist.
How would authorities in 2021 react if a man went traveling with friends and returned alone? Then when asked to explain what happened, he said that a purple dragon appeared and ate them all. Question is based on a similar incident in 1962, which also involved a dragon character that was popular during that time. He went into intricate detail about the encounter, and would submit his story in even more detail in Fate magazine 3 years later. He didn't explicitly say it was the character, but the insinuation was very strong. The search and rescue authorities, the military servicemen who participated in the search, and locals all believed his story of the dragon eating them. When he reached middle age, and the internet became a thing, he spent his later years on forums dedicated to paranormal phenomena, requesting the telephone numbers of anyone claiming to have seen the dragon. He died in 2017.
Hi, me again. Edward McCleary died in 2016, not 2017. Why so fixated on something so small? It's not the darkest or strangest mystery out there. It has plausible answers, and the right sub will humor your wildest ideas. There's plenty of people in the world of cryptozoology who are healthy skeptics like myself. Cryptids are fun for speculation and ideas, but proof? Proof is always the hard part. No evidence that it happened to debunk. Would require a body mauled by a dragon. A dragon. Dragons existing in the fossil record. Dragons existing in general, etc., to even consider. None of that is the case. Debunked.
But why would Edward McCleary make up a detailed and vivid story, or a dragon eating them, and knowingly risk public ridicule is what I'm trying to uncover. He immediately told the rescue crew and the parents, and even wrote private letters to dragon researchers over the years. This event became an obsession for him.
What do you want me to say? Eyewitness testimony is unreliable and invalid for discerning the truth. No matter what anyone says on what might have happened, Dave doesn't care if it doesn't match what he already thinks is the truth. No matter what people say, he has the same mindset. McCleary killed 4 people at sea, blamed a dragon he made up that was based on a kids' show, and no one did anything to bring him to justice.
So this was posted just now in Off My Chest. I'm highly skeptical and not inclined to believe this, given the timing between it being posted here 2 days ago, and I also saw it in another sub, not older than 3 days tops. Just too convenient. But I can be wrong, of course. In that case, I'm very sorry for the guy. What are y'all's thoughts?
No, it's totally fake. Dude murdered his 4 closest friends, blamed it on a sea monster for fame? And when he didn't get his desired fame, he turned to drugs and alcohol instead of murdering again? The writing is totally off and feels like a story of someone who is trying to lend credibility to their theory of the event. He had no reason to murder his friends, and there's no evidence he did. Many believe the boys were attacked by a great white shark, and because it was dark, McCleary, delirious from thirst and drinking salt water, imagined they were attacked by something else. Additionally, he did not turn to drugs and alcohol. He worked and supported his family and died at the age of 70. This isn't like Coochie's key lime pie mystery. The person behind that seemed to be boosting the thing they were obsessed with. This pie is amazing, best pie ever, 1,000 times over, all about the pie. Dave isn't celebrating anything. He's looking for people to agree with him without question. Another throwaway claims to be the son of McCleary. We're finally getting to that one. This throwaway account claims that McCleary confessed that he made it all up and killed his friends. There's also the claim that McCleary suffered from schizophrenia and had a nervous breakdown, which led to him murdering his friends out at Pensacola Pass. But the problem with that is, yes, there seems to be a Sean McCleary. But on the memorial page I found for McCleary, all I see is love. All I see is a son who misses his dad and hopes he's happy on the other side.
I am the son of a serial killer who confessed on his deathbed. My father, Edward Brian McCleary, killed 4 people, then he made up an alibi. Authorities at the time believed him. His sea monster story was fabricated. He got the inspiration for the sea monster from a popular show that began airing pretty recently back in 1962 called The Cecil and Beanie Show. He did not outright say that it was a fictional character because that would have been, quote, too obvious, unquote. He seeked out fame and money via his monster story, submitting his story in detail to various magazines and newspapers throughout his life. Everyone believed his alibi, including those who honestly should not have. He was let go. In reality, the monster was none other than my father himself, and the monster story was a way for him to remove himself from responsibility, while attaining fame and money. He told me he got quite a lot of amusement out of people believing his story, and so he'd add things onto it with each telling. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia later in his life, became obsessed with dragons, and developed a habit of stalking people. Because the shipwreck was so close to the Pensacola Pass, he dumped the bodies there to ensure they would not wash ashore. He had a nervous breakdown and murdered them. He died a few years back. He had problems with drug addiction and alcoholism as well. I'm posting this because it seems like my father's alibi has become immortalized, in a way, especially under the pseudoscience of cryptozoology. Though that story was a fabrication on my father's part, and what actually happened was a lot more realistic and a lot darker. He confessed all of this on his deathbed. It took me a while to process that a down-to-earth and funny person did something so cruel early on in his life.
Then I look at the actual obituary. McCleary passed at the age of 70 in 2016. His son's post was made in March of 2020. The throwaway claiming to be him was posted around early April of 2021. And nobody reading those posts actually believes the poster about the confession or about him being Sean. But why go this far? I can understand thinking a story about a dragon killing teenagers is silly. That's a perfectly normal reaction. But the absolute fixation at which this person has about McCleary and his dragon. Holy shit, you'd think that a dragon killed Dave's entire family, burned their crops and destroyed their village, stole all the virgins and poisoned the well, committed tax fraud. I don't know what dragons do. Why would someone hate a man this much that they'd accuse him of murder and claim to have killed him with memes? You didn't think I was going to skip over that one, did you? Look, there's multiple different throwaways that state that they believe they killed McCleary by spamming him with pictures of Cecil.
I may have been responsible for the death of a serial killer. Ask me anything. Shortly before he died, I spammed Edward Brian McCleary, serial killer, with pictures of Cecil from the Cecil and Beanie Show. McCleary is a serial killer who got away with murder by going out to sea with 4 of his friends on a raft when he was 16, telling them they were going to explore a shipwreck. Then, in 30 feet deep water, he murdered his friends. When asked what happened, he said Cecil from the Cecil and Beanie Show appeared out of a magical fog and killed his friends one by one, conveniently leaving him as the sole survivor. In case the description was not obvious enough, the sketch looked exactly like Cecil, and on top of it, the show began to air exclusively in his state only a month prior to the murder. Coincidence? I think not. This asshole repeatedly profited off the deaths of his friends by spamming his stupid story to Fate magazine and other magazines, newspapers, even years after the incident. He never referred to his friends as friends. Strangely, he always referred to them as his comrades. He got away with murder because the gullible authorities believed him, because cartoon characters from Bob Clampett's shows just coming to life and killing people is totes normal in Florida, I guess. And he lived as a recluse, drug addict, and alcoholic before he died in 2016-2017. Shortly before he died, maybe 2015-2016, I spammed him with Cecil pictures that had overlaid meme text saying stuff like, Bradford Rice autopsy report, which conveniently didn't quite match up with his cover story. I know what you did, and I'm you. Lol, maybe it made him drink himself to death. Good.
There we go again, talking about murder as the only possible answer. One of those very accounts goes on to claim that they are, in fact, someone who works in criminal justice. You seriously spammed that dude? How did you get his email or phone number? And if it was in 2015, that was 6 years ago. Maybe you should consider moving on with your life.
I have. I work a criminal justice career.
That's awesome. I have a friend who has a bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm obsessed with ID Channel. I make my kids watch Web of Lies. I doubt that. I really do. Dave is hell-bent on giving himself all the credibility he can while also trashing McCleary as much as he can. One throwaway says he works in criminal justice and possibly killed the killer. The killer who is claimed across all these throwaways to be a drug addict, or an alcoholic, or a schizophrenic, a combination of the three. Some throwaways posted on subs, like neuro, or even ask law enforcement, just asking what illness McCleary could have possibly had, or why he got away with murder. Some throwaways accused McCleary of stalking after they said that the story wasn't real. None of that, from stalking to schizophrenia, can I find any verification on. McCleary did have a mental breakdown after his friends died, but he recovered some months later. After that, nothing. Don't know anything about the guy's personal life or mental health. It's one thing to hate the dragon, but it's another to think that a 16-year-old could swim out to an old shipwreck with his friends, murder 4 of them, and then make up a story that nobody questions. Is it possible that something else happened entirely and the dragon was something his brain conjured up to replace the actual accident that killed his friends? I'm not saying it's impossible that he murdered 4 people, but no, you know what? Let's look at the what-ifs. We're already here. Why not? The dragon, surprisingly, isn't the most interesting part of the story. 5 people went out, 1 person came back. One of the boys was found days later, dead by drowning. The other 3 teens? Good luck finding records that they exist. You run their names through the Social Security database and you get nothing. It's possible maybe one of them didn't have a Social Security number, but all 3? That's odd. 1 teenager killing 4 other teenagers in the ocean on a raft is not likely. Unless he was super fast or super skilled, it's highly unlikely he killed 4 people. Killing 1 person is easy, especially by accident in deep water. Anyone who says 30 feet of water isn't deep has never been in 30-foot deep water. What if McCleary was a weak swimmer who accidentally drowned the found teen while they were out at sea? And the dragon was the cover-up along with adding the other 3 boys to the story. You might suspect McCleary of killing 1 person, sure, but all 4? No. He probably saw something he couldn't explain and his brain filled in the gaps and, well, shit, now there are 4 teenagers missing. Oh, look, one of them washed up on the beach. Death by drowning. What if the teens were all real, all out there in the water, and they actually did get into the path of a whale like people theorize? Like I said, this is the theory I go with. Brain fills gaps with what was once a kind and goofy creature, turning it into something sinister and hungry. What if McCleary felt immense guilt from his idea to go near the buoy? According to him, there had been a riptide that dragged the raft under. Maybe the raft did go under, and only McCleary came back up. The buoy became the stand-in for the monster he says killed them all because, in a way, it did. Look at all those possibilities. Look at all those ideas. Of all the interesting facets and strange mysteries in this tale, of the handful of things that raise your eyebrows or have you asking questions, Dave is focused on dragons not existing, and therefore McCleary killed 4 people. Dave started out asking if people thought there was a dragon at all. And then over the course of 5 years and multiple throwaways, he dove headlong into his idea. No, his fact, because to him, it's fact. This whole thing for Dave is a coin flip. Heads, there was a dragon. Tails, McCleary killed 4 people. There are only 2 options. Dave has turned this multifaceted story into a coin flip. Dave is hooked on the idea that McCleary killed his friends. He also seems to be transfixed on the idea that the dragon was made up. Completely. McCleary didn't see something strange. He made it up entirely. And it's not just a casual feeling toward this story. Do you know how many throwaways I found? Over 30 throwaway accounts. Just from this one person. This is a fact to Dave. The coin flip that is this story. What's with all these now suspended accounts posting variations on this same story? I'm wondering if it's the same guy just creating a new account just to post this same drivel over and over and over. I'm not sure why they're all suspended though. At least all the ones I've seen. Posting shit typically doesn't result in suspension. Possibly using the sub to boost karma for new accounts prior to operating as a spammer, if the account requirements bar for posting is set low. Wait, is this the guy who kept spamming a survey about how the police would view the disappearance of his friends? I think he killed him. Finally, why did you use a throwaway to post this?
Well, I know it's hard to prove, and really want to believe OP, and take comfort in this finally being out and admitted. I find the timing somewhat suspicious and convenient, as this story was posted on True Crime Discussion and an Unsolved Reddit. This is from 2 days ago. If it is the God's honest truth, OP, I wholeheartedly apologize and am very sorry you had to live with this and hear this confession. But I do hope you can understand my skepticism. Anyone else with thoughts on this?
Profile is already gone.
Figures.
Why is everyone ignoring the truth, is what he wants to know. Because he has it all figured out. Or this is all an elaborate troll that I'm feeding, in which case, whoopsie-daisy, you got me, haha, well done, move along. I'll even admit, it's possible that the fake Sean and the meme killer accounts aren't related to Dave at all, and are just there to mess with him for his obsession. But I have to think with just Dave, it's not trolling we're dealing with. Trolls troll to get attention via negative behavior. This doesn't feel like that because Dave only responds to people who reply with more questions that align with his idea. And he seems to, most of the time, ignore replies that don't align. The posts actually don't get a lot of attention. Initially, a couple of the posts got 100 upvotes and a couple dozen comments, but why would someone continue to post similar things for 5 years only to not get much attention after the first post? Trolls thrive off of negative attention. That's what they do. but any negative attention thrown at Dave at all is met with a wall of silence. He just doesn't reply to people who aren't agreeing. That doesn't sound like troll behavior to me. Sounds like the opposite. Is there an opposite to a troll? I don't know. Wouldn't a troll want to piss off people who don't agree with what they're saying? Here. One of the biggest and one of the only, but not the only, negative post threads where one of the throwaways replied. Your understanding of this tragedy leaves a lot to be desired. For instance, the thick fog did not instantly appear out of nowhere. According to McCleary, it slowly rolled in from the sea, which isn't at all unusual. Also, not all the boys were eaten by the sea serpent. The body of Brad Rice washed ashore and was discovered about a week later. As for his sketches of the monster, they are very much like sketches of sea serpents the world over. And your allegation that it bore an uncanny resemblance to some cartoon dragon is asinine.
Dragons are not real, so his story about this sea serpent is not true. They cannot kill people as they do not exist. The way I see this is describing a dragon, and then describing Spyro, the dragon. Yes, Spyro is a dragon, but he is still distinctive looking, in the same way Cecil is. In his story, he describes it attacking and eating Brad, and went into quite a lot of detail about it as well. My point still stands. The dragon/sea serpent story is a complete fabrication on his part, as it is not possible for fiction to come to life. Something else happened. But what?
Please cite where I said dragons are real. You don't know what might exist in the world's vast oceans. There's a very similar sea serpent, or river monster, in the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida, where McCleary lived until his death in 2016. Although he refused to discuss what happened that night in Pensacola when his 4 friends died, he contacted an author who had written about the aquatic monsters in the St. Johns, and requested the address and phone numbers of the individuals who had actually seen the serpent that resembled the sea monster he saw as a teenager. You don't know what he saw that night. His story never changed, and he was disturbed by what happened for the remainder of his life. His family and friends never doubted he was telling the truth. He may have been confused as to some of the details, but the story wasn't fabricated just because you say so. You don't know what might exist in the world's vast oceans.
Argument from ignorance. It's like saying we don't know what's on the moon. Santa and Godzilla could live there. There is absolutely no evidence that dragons exist or have ever existed. People lying about seeing them is not evidence. There's plenty of sightings of Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy as well. You could say we don't know what's in Earth's atmosphere, so it's possible that Santa Claus rides his sleigh so far up into the sky that we cannot normally see him. There's even been sightings of Donald Duck and Pokemon. Are they real? No, they are not. That site is a paranormal website, not a scientific one. It is no more credible than a young Earth creationism website. I don't believe it's appropriate at this time to entertain supernatural theories given that 4 kids lost their lives that day. All this proves, if accurate, is it seems like Edward McCleary developed an unhealthy obsession with aquatic dragons for some unknown reason. This could have been him abusing drugs, as he would later become a drug addict. Drug addiction can cause psychosis.
His story never changed, and he was disturbed by what happened for the remainder of his life.
He's a good writer. I'll give him that.
You don't know what he saw that night.
I don't. But one thing I can be sure of is that fiction was not coming to life that night.
He may have been confused as to some of the details, but the story wasn't fabricated just because you say so.
It was fabricated as dragons do not exist. Please don't be gullible. Show me some bones, fossils, or clear photos of dragons. There are none. What makes it more ridiculous as dragons are always described as reptiles. So they would need to surface for air constantly. We'd quickly notice them. NOAA surveys whale pods via satellite. How come we haven't picked up a dragon on satellite? We've also never found dragon DNA with environmental DNA either. Plenty of sharks, whales, and fish. But no gigantic reptilian dragons.
Dude, you need to take a deep breath and calm down. You are way overwrought and totally obsessed with this story as evidenced by the fact you've posted it in multiple subs. If you want to believe McCleary fabricated the story, that's your choice. But don't expect everyone to agree with your argumentative, harebrained nonsense. Oh boy, okay, how do we go from a possible dragon off the Florida coast to Santa Claus and Godzilla living on the moon? I mean, Godzilla is a reptile, but why the moon? The moon is in Florida, or the bottom of the ocean, or our upper atmosphere. Also, why does Dave instantly point to drugs being the cause of seeing a dragon? I do not like that insinuation. Think about all the people who have claimed to see something like Bigfoot, a lake monster, a chupacabra, anything in the cryptozoological menagerie. Are we supposed to think that every single one of them was drugged out of their minds? Dave seems to think you can only see something strange if you're on drugs. Dave's argument goes as this. 5 kids went out, 1 came back. McCleary said a dragon killed his friends. Dragons aren't real, therefore murder. The coin flip that I talked about. Heads or tails, dragon or murder. Dave is spending most of his time arguing that dragons aren't real and ignoring that wouldn't prove his argument. You say there was no murder, then to Dave you're saying dragons are real. He can't get that it can be not murder, but also not dragon. I already mentioned a bunch of possibilities and probably got a little too heated about some of them. And some of them didn't involve sea life at all. None of them are good enough for Dave. For him, everything is the coin flip. McCleary killed his friends because dragons don't exist. Heads and tails. Dragon, therefore murder. Dragons don't exist, therefore McCleary killed. Anything other than agreeing with that one single idea means you're dumb. Over 30 different throwaway accounts, and this all started 5 years ago, and every month or so a new account will pop up, posting the exact same arguments. What could make someone dedicate their free time to something that isn't actually getting them anywhere? Why does Dave want people to agree with his idea on this small topic so badly? Dave isn't moving on. One account will get suspended, so he'll create a new one about the same thing, and no matter how many times his accounts get suspended, he'll keep making more. For what? A bunch of downvotes? No one is supporting his theory, so he's not gaining what he wants. Madness is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. And the only result he seems to get nowadays is someone telling him, "Stop posting this. No one cares." Dave cares. An awful lot, honestly. And unless someone can verify and speak with him on the matter, we might never know why. Either way, this was a hell of a rabbit hole. Mental illness or trolling, I can't tell. And besides, I've talked so long that the sun is starting to come up through the trees. Do you think you can find your way home in the dark? Alright, good. But thanks for coming out into the woods and hearing me chatter about things. I may be overthinking another person's obsession, but I do appreciate you coming out. But that's it for now. I'll see you past sunset. Good night.